This is Avalon Bakery International, home of the best bread in Detroit. It started 12 years ago in one of the city's most blighted neighborhoods, across the street from a tent city for the homeless. Avalon's founder, Jackie Victor, was a former University of Michigan activist who was drawn here by Jimmy Boggs, a patriarch of Detroit revolutionaries, but one whose message was distinctly his own.
I remember Jimmy saying, like, we can't wait for the man to create our jobs. And we can't wait for someone else to make us the city that we want to have. You know, we've got to open our own shoe stores, bake our own bread. You know, we've got to create the city that we want for ourselves.
Because our parents told us, you have to make a way out of no way. You don't hear people tell folks that now. All of us go around and say, I can't do nothing because this old racist society. I can't do nothing because this old capitalist society. I can't wait because these white folks are around here messing with me. I can't do this, I can't. So that today, most of us are already frozen in line. Yeah. Let me tell you something, and this is going to be hard for most of you to face. Most black folks are locked in the wood of racism. You don't see it as a challenge to you. You see it as an excuse for saying why you can't do nothing. That's the most devastating thing that's happened to us. We have to see it as a challenge to take us to another plateau. And I want to tell you something else. You see, my father died when I was 8. So that was on my Mother's Day. And she always told me, baby, you do whatever makes you happy in life. But she also said you ought to always try to do something that make the world a little better.
Malik Yakini listened to Jimmy Boggs too. He is a community activist who runs the Black Star Community Bookstore in Detroit and directs the Insorama Institute Public School Academy in Southfield. He also runs something called the Black Food Security Network.
There's a couple of problems that we're faced with. One is that although the geographical size of the city of Detroit is exactly the same as it was 50 years ago, the population is less than half of what it was in 1950. In 1950, there were 2 million people approximately in the city of Detroit, and in 2000, there were approximately 900,000. So you have these vast swaths of unoccupied land in the city of Detroit where formerly you had either housing or businesses that either have been torn down or are now sitting vacant. So the city still has to maintain the same, again, city of the same geographical size. It still has to keep the same number of streetlights operating. It has to pave the same number of streets. It has to plow the same number of streets in the winter, but without the tax base that it formerly had. So we have to find a new strategy if Detroit is going to survive and be revitalized. So one of those strategies has been looking at urban agriculture, that these many acres of vacant land in Detroit could be used to begin to grow food and to grow food that can be either sold as produce or as other value-added products, can be processed and sold as other value-added products, which again helps to localize the food system, gives people more access to fresh produce, which they will consume in a time period that's much shorter from the time that it's been harvested, and also it helps to circulate more of the dollars in the city of Detroit.
I think that the approach of that we're going to try to cure hunger or try to cure poverty is going to only perpetuate hunger and poverty in Detroit and communities all over this country and all over the world, that I just feel like dealing with a symptom of a greater underlying root cause is never going to get us to that, that deep kind of healing.
Lisa Richter works at Earthworks Urban Farm, an outgrowth of the Capuchin Monks Soup Kitchen, which now includes an apiary, kids classes, and a mobile market.
Community revitalization that deals with the community as a whole, a whole mess of networks and beautiful things happening and ugly things happening that isn't just so simple as there are people who need food. Like, that's not that, it's never that simple. And so I feel like the work in terms of urban agriculture, begins to look at how do we look at communities as, as a whole thing that individuals, and I know, and I myself included, need, that individual healing that comes from time spent with a plant.
See kind of, again, a coming together of these various forces and various ideas. And I think also we're seeing a coming together of the idea of personal transformation and care for the earth, as you said, and also kind of this larger social transformation, that again, it's not one or the other, that it's not just about transforming society, it's also about transforming ourselves and doing what we can to transform our communities and being examples of the types of change that we want to come into being.